Joining me now to talk about it is Brian Brooks. Brian Brooks, I'm sorry, Brian. He's was the CEO of Bitfury. Oh, no, he is the CEO of Bitfury. And he's former CEO of Binance.us. So that was a Bitcoin company. He's also, I knew him in the White House. He was an acting controller of the currency. All right. So, Brian Brooks, first of all, tell me where you agree and disagree with my riff. I mean, what do you think? Is this a calamity? Is this a catastrophe? Should we throw the baby out with the bathwater? Is Bitcoin and the rest of it here to stay or not? What are you thinking?
Well, Larry, first of all, I was going to accuse you of hacking my phone because I couldn't have written a better script, if I tried. Okay. I think that, look, the really smart thing that you say at the end is we have cryptocurrency for one reason, and that is a belief that the dollar and the banking system might not be as strong as we thought they were, right? So you talk about the decline in the S&P, the decline in Bitcoin. The dollar's down 8.5% this year if you think that inflation is a measure of its purchasing power, right? And the point of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies is to build a system that can't be politicized and that can't be used, for these kind of ends that our easy money policies of the last 10 or 12 years in America have been about. That's what crypto's all about. Now, yes, it has been a dramatically risk-off environment the last couple of weeks. Feels like the world's coming to an end. But that doesn't mean that Bitcoin's going away. What it means is people are assessing where is a safe haven in a storm.
I mean, go back and think about this. So Bitcoin, of course, is in the news, not just Bitcoin, Coinbase, Ethereum. The other one is this Terra US dollar, which allegedly was linking its digital currency to the dollar, but that kind of broke down. Now, this stuff is very much in the news. People are losing a lot of money in the short run, although all the risk assets are losing money, but maybe the Bitcoins of the world worse. But the point is, what does the future hold? I mean, Brian, I think it's here to stay. I think people have to go in with their eyes open, and I think these same people know they can make a lot of money. Many of them probably have made a lot of money if they bought, cheaper. Then sometimes you lose money. That's the way our great free market system works. I mean, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, do you?
Well, you definitely don't, Larry. And look, on the day that I became controller of the currency in May of 2020, the price of Bitcoin was around $4,000. It's now $30,000, and we consider that to be a crash. So if you just think about it, we're up about 1,000% in the space of 2.5 years. Yes, it's well down off its high, and that's because of a whole set of disastrous policies going on among the developed countries, but it's still up faster than anything else. And the reason, you asked what the future is about, Larry, the reason is because the future belongs to networks, and cryptocurrencies are network-based dollars. They're not dollars created by politicians who have political ends like climate change or job growth or whatever. These are things where people are investing in the growth of a network, and the network produces its own token that has value. That is the whole point of all cryptocurrencies.
Brian, when you were running the controller of the currency, which is a very big job, were all your little bank examiners and different staff people, were they all opposed to cryptocurrencies? Did they want to regulate them and control them and run them out of town?
Well, I mean, listen, there were on our side of the aisle, Larry, there were a couple of different points of view, but I think bureaucrats generally want to control things. Now, my argument to my staff at the time was, listen, there's this whole activity that's taking over the financial system. We have no visibility into it, and so we should invite it into the banking system so that we would have visibility. And I think that got the bank examiners across the line. It's the Fed you got to worry about, because the Fed doesn't control banks. They control money. And the Fed is very, very worried about a decentralized currency system that's outside of their political control. That's where the bodies are buried.
See, that's why I say one key point in this whole discussion is that this is an internet thing. This is not a Federal Reserve thing. This is not a Treasury thing. And also on that point, Brian, the Fed talks about creating digital dollars. That's a far cry. That's a far cry from Bitcoin and Ethereum, because those would be Fed dollars, and they would do the creating. They would just have it online. Big deal. I'm kind of underwhelmed by that idea.
Well, hey, Larry, rather than being underwhelmed, you should be scared of it. And I'll tell you why, because the only major economy that's done that is China. And the reason that China created this big central bank digital currency is precisely so they could control the transactions of individual Chinese people. Think about it. Today, you can take your cash in your wallet and walk into a store and buy what you want, and that's private between you and the seller. But in China, the point of central bank digital currency is every transaction that you engage in can be determined and decided by the government. So you want to buy a shotgun to teach your son how to go duck hunting in my hometown in Colorado? That's not going to be allowed one day because the government will decide if that's good for you or bad for you. Central bank digital currency is scary.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But Brian, just some brief additional points. Don't the blockchain ledgers, I mean, they're very accurate. There's not as, people always talk about fraud and, you know, drug smuggling and all that, but that turns out not to be the case, as I understand it. And the blockchain technologies have come a long way.
Yeah, well, they totally have. But the difference between a blockchain and between government control is basically this, which is on a blockchain, everything's transparent. Like the security of blockchain is the fact that it's available for the public to look at. But on the other hand, it's not controlled by anybody. So if you had the trade-off between transparency but user control or privacy but government control, which would you pick? And the bet that crypto is about is that people would rather control their own money.
Well, that's the thing. I fear all these left-wing progressives in the administration. They're going to want to control everything, and they're going to go after digital currencies. I mean, I think there's an assault coming, but that's a grist from another bill. I guess last one. Isn't this just going to grow? I mean, really? I mean, people are going to come in. I'm going to ask Jim Uriel in a moment. You know, he's from his own alternative universe, and I want to know if he's going to come. But that was a joke. That was a joke. Haha, I love Jim. But I'm saying, you know, why not take a flight? Why not come and buy this stuff cheap? Some of this stuff's down, like Coinbase is down 72% year to date. Coinbase is profitable. The thing's profitable. It made $4.7 billion last year. So if it's off 70%, I don't know. I think you'd want to buy it.
Yeah, look, I mean, I'm not a stockbroker, Larry, but if you told me I could buy Coinbase at 42, which you could have for a few minutes yesterday, that would have been a historically cheap buy. But at the end of the day, you know, think about it as, would you have wanted to buy Amazon in 2001, right after the dot-com bust? Most people were scared, but the people who knew they should buy Amazon are rich today. That's my view about Bitcoin. It is Web3. It is internet-enabled money. And yes, it has peaks and valleys for sure, but every time the valley is about 10 times what the valley was last time. So it went from 0 to 1,000 and back to 100. Then it went to 17,000, back to 3,000. Then it went to 70,000. Now it's down to 30,000. It will then go to, see, this is the way it goes, is it goes up over time. If you believe in networks and if you believe in user control, crypto's here to stay. It is the growth asset of the 21st century. All
right. Brian Brooks, thank you very much. I don't know, we tracked you down. You're mountain climbing someplace in California. I hope you survive. Please be safe, because we need you buying some Bitcoin.